Hi cuties! Today we'll be going over all the books that I read in December as quickly as possible because there are a lot. It's weird how late this video is coming out, but that's what's happened. We're gonna just try to get into it. I did read 13 books in the month of December, and I did not complete the TBR though. I had one book left over. I am currently reading it. Actually, by the time you see this video, I'll probably be done with it by now. From the TBR that I had set, I did not complete Not Like the Movies by Kerry Winfrey. I just ran out of time to read it, and I'm very disappointed in myself. I read so many audiobooks this month. I only read 3 physical in December. I was so busy, and luckily what helped me out is then at work we can listen to stuff, and that is how I got through quite a bit of things. I got home and I was just so exhausted that I didn't have the brain capacity to even read, so took a while to get through a few because I did read quite a few chunky books, but on the plus side, a lot of these books were excellent books. I did not have any 2 stars this whole round. I think everybody was actually 4. Was there any 3s? I don't think anyone was a 3. I think they were all 4s or higher. Crazy. Quick little stats for everybody there. So I read 13 books in total, 6 of which were fantasy, 4 were sci-fi, and 3 were classics. I read 4,858 pages and 113 hours listened to audiobook. My average rating was 4.38 stars, which I think is the highest of any month that I did this year. And I read what I consider 6 adult books and 7 YA books. So very even splits. It would have been even 7 and 7 if I finished Not Like the Movies. I did not though. We're gonna try to be super quick about it so that this video is not boring for anybody. Because sometimes I feel recaps can get boring and long-winded, and the more I explain it, the longer this video is gonna be cute, so shut the hell up. Anyway, the very first book that I read was actually While Fee Was Here, and we listened to it together because it's one of her favorite books. That was The Slow Regard of Silent Things by Patrick Rothfuss, which is a novella all about Ari, who is Fee's favorite character. Not my favorite character. Don't hate her though. She's a great character. She's just not my number 1. Okay? I feel bad though because I did have a little bit of trouble connecting with the story, and we had to go back and listen to it again, but I think I was just distracted. Ari is a sweet character who is very different and has had experiences happen to her that have changed her mentally, and that makes her a very intriguing character to try to follow her logic and how everything's going down. But it is a very cute, it's very short, it only takes like 2 hours to listen to on audiobook, and so we were just making stuff together, just hanging out and listening to an audiobook. Very cute. You do need to read the rest of Kingkiller Chronicles to really understand who Ari is and have context, so it's not a novella that you can stand alone with it, but there's that. Next up, I was pleasantly surprised with is Defy the Night by Bridget Kemmerer, and this is kind of a low fantasy series because it's a kind of medieval setting world, but there is a plague around this world, and the only thing that cures it is this special flower. Those flowers are grown and turned into medicine from other areas in the kingdom, and there's a lot of smuggling, so we actually follow the story of a smuggler whose partner gets caught and killed, and she is on her own with this, and then also gets involved with one of the princes. Oh, well, not one. He's the prince. His brother's the king. It's intertwined with the politics of the world and the smugglers and uprisings and rebellion, and it was just really well done. It was fairly believable, especially in the time of plague right now and the greedy hordes of Pfizer and Moderna and all them making billions of dollars while many people around the world do not have vaccines. Super great times. It's also a beautiful cover, by the way, if you haven't seen how gorgeous this is. But I really like it. I like Bridget Kemmerer's writing. I need to finish Cursebreakers so bad. I definitely like her new one, and it is the start of a series. It might be a duology, but this one wraps up. I honestly thought this was going to be a standalone because it wraps up very nicely. There's potential for a sequel, but you can read this as a standalone. Next up, here was my slight disappointment, I guess. This was my 3-star. I did have a 3-star. But that is Witch Shadow by Susan Dennard. And I don't know what it is about this series, but I'm just not connecting with it anymore, and I feel bad about it. Because I remember liking the first book, and I really liked the 3rd book. I didn't like the 2nd book at all. And this one was just okay. I don't know why. I just didn't connect. I didn't remember. There are characters that I'm like, why are they POVs? I don't care about them, and they're not that important. And the ones who are important, where are they? I'm disappointed. I pre-ordered this baby and stuff, and I'm disappointed with it. The novella Sight Witch is really good, though. I will say that. You can read that as a standalone. You don't need to read the rest of the series. This is supposed to be Isolde's story, and it didn't really feel like Isolde's story. It felt like a lot of other characters that I don't care about. So, next up, I got into my classics, and that is Anne of the Island. I think, actually, I will just review these together, because I did read three more Anne books. So we did Anne of the Island, Anne of Windy Poplars on this one. It calls it Windy Willows. It depends on the edition, I suppose. And then Anne's House of Dreams. And I thoroughly enjoyed them because of the old Sullivan production of it. Now we can see where they pulled some of the plot for it, which is Anne of the Island and Anne of Windy Poplars is where it pulls a lot for that one, and it mixes things up a little bit with the Pringles and things, and I really enjoyed reading this. And then Anne's House of Dreams was a completely new story to me, because they did not put House of Dreams in any of them. The continuing story for Anne, the continuing story, is the third movie that they made, was completely fan fiction, because when Lucy Montgomery wrote these, I don't think World War I had quite happened yet, and so they put Anne in the situation of being in World War I. It's an excellent movie, by the way, but that's where my knowledge of Anne's story went off. So this was brand new, and I did like it because Anne and Gilbert go off together and live in this House of Dreams where he's being a doctor and stuff, and she's around people. It is kind of a tragic story, so trigger warning for child death in that one, because Anne, spoiler for a classic, Anne does get pregnant and loses the baby. It's not miscarriage, she does deliver the baby, but the baby does not survive. I believe that's why one of the books is called Rainbow Valley, because they end up having like 7 more children, which, if you don't know, when you have like a miscarriage and then you have another one that's successful, it's considered a rainbow child. So I think that's where this goes with the titles. I'm not sure because I haven't read them yet, but I do thoroughly enjoy seeing Anne grow up and Anne and Gilbert together, and still have the shenanigans that she still gets herself in, because that's why we love Anne. So anyway, those are those 3. Next up was 6 Crimson Cranes, the beautiful edition that's slightly faded on the top, but it's supposed to be that purpley. I love this. This is by Elizabeth Lim. This is the start of a duology, and it's excellent. It's so good. It deals with the mythology of an old Chinese story about these princes, these 6 princes who get turned into cranes, and then their sister, who knows who did it and stuff, ends up with a bowl attached to her head, and she cannot speak, or if she speaks, one of her brothers will die. So she is silenced from this curse, and if she dares to speak, they'll die. So, and then they all get separated as well, so she's searching for them, they're searching for her, and she also meets a dragon to help her. Really great, and I really enjoyed it. I love the relationships that happen in this. I love the plots in this. I love the characters in this. Elizabeth Lim is just one of my all-time favorite authors now. She's an autobuy, and I absolutely love her stuff. Easy read, highly recommend. If you want a good fantasy romance. Speaking of fantastic books, I finally read The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. Thoroughly enjoy this. This also included the prequel novella, The Pale Dreamer, in it. It's a chunk, and it took me so long to get through, but that was because I was busy with other stuff, and I was not allowed to sit and read like I wanted to. This is so intricate, dealing with people who have abilities. It gave me V for Vendetta vibes, to be honest, because it's set in the UK, and people who are different are persecuted, kind of thing. And our main character, who has this ability to kind of dream walk, and she can get into other people's dreamscapes and stuff. She gets kidnapped by these kind of fantasy alien-like creatures. I didn't know if I should categorize this as fantasy or sci-fi, but it's a little bit of both. Ends up kind of being a slave to them, but there's a rebellion and stuff, and maybe the person who's her slave master isn't actually a slave master, and he was really protecting her from becoming a true slave, and it's just really, really great. I really love this series. Samantha Shannon, I think, and I have a lot in common where we can't write tiny books, because she is the author of The Prior of the Orange Tree, which I absolutely loved as well, and now I have this one to say I love you. So, Bone Season. Next up is a book I honestly went in with very low expectations, and it was above expectations, but that is The Kingdom by Jess Rothenberg, which is the story, if you like Disney and you like robots, here you go. We have the story of Anna, who is what they call a fantasist, and it's basically she lives in Disneyland, but it's not Disneyland. She is a princess. She's one of the main princess, but she is also kind of like part human, but not human. She's created, she's a robot, but she's also evolving and experiencing emotions, and she meets this other person who is like a maintenance guy, but he's a little bit more than a maintenance guy, and she finds there's this kind of conspiracy with some of her other sisters who are now disappearing because they're malfunctioning, and something's wrong with the animals of the park who are also hybrid fantasists like them, and there's this huge conspiracy, and it's told in dual timeline because she is accused of murdering the maintenance guy, and so it goes back and forth between the court case of it and the time that things were happening. So I thought it was really well done and told that way. I feel like this is a very underhyped book that deserves a lot more love because it was very well done, very good. Hala, I do think this is one that you will like because it does involve like a Disneyland setting, but it's very, very good, very well done. Highly enjoyed that. Enjoyed that far more than I thought I would. Next up was the final book on my 22 books of 2022, and that is His Majesty's Dragon, which is the Temeraire book 1 by Naomi Novik, and I did enjoy this quite a lot. Get the criticism for it, though. There are some criticism saying how it's very convenient how things turn out for our character of Will and Temeraire the dragon, but I liked it being kind of a little less. I mean, no, there were still some high-stakes moments. It's just they went by a little bit quickly, but that's because this is book 1, and it's really setting up, the relationship between Will and Temeraire, which, honestly, at some times it felt a little bit like homoerotic subtext between the two of them. Just saying, there are moments where I'm like, what now? I don't know. We'll have to see the rest of the series. If there's some bestiality going on, I don't know. There's not. They don't. But, like, there's a few moments where, like, he accidentally gets Temeraire heated. And he constantly calls Temeraire my dear. So, it's a cute little relationship that they have. And Temeraire will not do anything for anyone except for Will, unless Will tells him, you have to help this person. So they have a really interesting relationship. But it is set in Napoleonic era during Napoleon's crusade. And they're fighting with dragons. So it's a historical fiction with dragons. Next one was I finished a trilogy, and that is Supernova by Marissa Meyer. And this book took me for a roller coaster ride of emotions. I also am curious, Marissa Meyer, you're going to be writing more of this because that epilogue from Magpie's point of view, I'm sorry. What now? You're writing more, right? Like you're writing more? Like there's going to be a Magpie series now? Because if you don't, things are going to happen. It's not threatening. I love this trilogy. I don't know why people don't love this trilogy as much. I honestly prefer the Renegades trilogy more than Lunar Chronicles. I said it. I said it. Come for me if you will. But I enjoyed this series a lot because we have a character who is a villain. Our main character is a villain. She's a complex villain where it's like, is she a villain? Is she not? She has motivations that are valid. She grew up in this. I did call the twist though. Like one of the big twists, like I knew that from the moment we started this series. I knew that was going to be a thing, but that's fine. I still really liked this. I liked how the relationships went. I liked how everything happened. Like, it was a little bit predictable, but predictability to me is not a bad thing. That means the author is leading the reader correctly. Because if they do a full twist that's, like, way out of... that makes no sense at all and has no build-up to it, that's bad writing. That's being mean to your readers. Marissa Meyer is not mean to our well, she's a little mean, but... She leads us correctly into the path so that we can still see where the story is going, but you have that little hesitancy where you're not quite sure if that's where it's going. And then does a little bit of twists, you know? But I love this. I love this series quite a lot, and I demand more. I demand a Magpie series. Another series I finally continued with, I started this series this year. I'm super enjoying this. It's intense. It's Sailor Moon meets Kaiju. We've got Siege of Shadows by Sarah Rofle, which is the second book in the Effigies trilogy, so I do need to read the third one now, and boy am I reading that fast. I will say, like, I like this series a lot because it's having reincarnating magical girls who are very complex humans and are all very unique and different, and I really like that dynamic in this. I will say, for the main character, I'm a little disappointed with the ending of this one. Major cliffhanger, but it did the trope of someone who the main character has long believed dead suddenly isn't dead, and it's very convenient when they show up. And I'm a little mad at that trope. It's just a trope I don't really like. And for me, it doesn't make sense because effigies are kind of random lot. You can't really predict who's going to become an effigy next. So the fact that this character shows up in the end on the villain side makes absolutely no sense to me for why it's happened. So I guess we'll get that explained in the third book, but it made me a little bit, that's why I knocked down a star for that, but the rest of the book is great. I do like the complication. Like, this is a very complicated story with very complicated, not complicated story. There's a lot of complicated relationships in this story, and so I really like seeing that and seeing how people react to different things and how their relationships change over time based on their own decisions. It makes them feel very three-dimensional. Very last book, I technically finished on the first, but I was mostly done with it. I was over 2/3 done with this book by that time, so I count it. But that is Wildcard by Marie Lu, so I finished the duology, and this one took me for such spins. Like, every time you thought you got over a climactic part, another one hits you. And I got real scared that a character died. Like, how do you survive that? But you figure out how. It's great. And this is another duology by Marie Lu that a lot of people don't like for some reason, and I disagree. I think it's great. It's not my favorite Marie Lu trilogy, or not trilogy, but series or anything. That still is Young Elites. I think Marie Lu is really great at writing flawed characters and complex characters and really putting your emotions through the ringer. The Warcross is the first book, and it was excellent. I do say I don't really like the narrator for this. I think it was just how her voice resonates with the microphone. I didn't really like that. There was a weird interference that was happening in my brain while listening to it. So I might have enjoyed it a little bit more if I was physically reading it, but I definitely enjoyed this a lot. And that's them. That's all the books that I read in December. That is the last of 2021. I don't know if I'm going to be doing my Superlatives award show this year. It's a lot of effort, and I will have to be doing it all by myself. If you want to see that, though, I can try to make an effort to do that, but only if there is actual interest in seeing the Superlatives. Otherwise, we're going to leave 2021 where it was. I might do a stats thing, I don't know, but I'm kind of over 2021 at this point with everything that happened. So if you would like to see, a year recap of stats and things, or of the Superlatives, where I can show you the best book of the year and all my other weird things that I created last year for the Cordy Awards, let me know if you would like to see that, in which case then I will make an effort to do it. But if it's just me alone and then nobody wants to actually see it, I'm not going to do it. That's all. What did you guys read in December? Finishing up your year. How did your reading year go? Did you get your goals done? If not, that's fine. You still did something. As long as you make progress, you're still winning. And even if you're not making progress, you better at least be taking care of yourself. Leave your questions and comments below, or on Facebook, Tumblr, and Twitter, and I will see you next time, cuties. Bye! Ow, I can't do that without hurting myself. I still have an injury, by the way. Super fun times. Bye! myself up. It's fine. So we have my bariatric app telling me it's time to eat.